Ladies and gentlemen, I'm...
Welcome to the third episode of Shot of Nostalgia, where we continue our dive back into the history of wrestling and fully immerse ourselves into a timeline. We are continuing our journey through 1996 WCW, reliving one of the more memorable years in wrestling history. As always, I'm Stephen Acefield, the ace of the Tavern, and I am joined by my fellow time-traveling pal, Mike Bellcaster. What's up, my dude?
Nothing much, man. The king of extreme, if you will, for the week. Yeah, man, having a good time. Really happy to be back here in 1996. The snacks are better. The Ecto Cooler is running wild. It's a good time to be alive, man.
100%. And I'm telling you, man, this is quickly becoming my favorite part of the week. And that's not hyperbole. I'm not just saying that because you guys are joining us watching here on a Friday. We're getting our weekend started with some great wrestling and going through a timeline that is honestly, compared to a lot of different timelines, it's one of the best things I've seen in such a long time.
Yeah, no, I could not agree more. I mean, we are getting all the action. We're getting 3 matches. We're getting these random throw matches. Like, I'm just not spoiling, but we did see Marcus Bagwell at a very young age fighting a beautiful Ric Flair, and I was so mind blown by that.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot to get into, and we got 2 good episodes. I appreciate you guys giving us all the likes and love for the last episode we did. I know it was a long one because we had to include the Clash of Champions. We reformatted the schedule, so it looks like we're going to only do 2 episodes at a time because I think that's the best way to consume this. We want to make sure you guys are not getting too much at one time. I know it can be a lot of information, so going forward, we're going to have 2 shows, whether it be 2 Nitros, a pay-per-view and a Nitro and a Clash Champions. That's how we're coming to you. We're learning on the fly. As you guys can see, we have that beautiful intro. We have the new banner here as well. We got the reformatted because I know it was bothering some people that you couldn't see it. Me personally, I didn't notice, but I know Mike Bellcaster, you had said this is a very, very good change, right?
It's very nice. I mean, you got what we're all about here. WCW 1996, full in color, right at the bottom with a little purple spooky dust, and up in this corner right here, we are living the shot of nostalgia, man. So I as the wise men say, I'm here for it.
Yes, we are both here for it. Let's take care of some housekeeping, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Turnbuckle Tavern. We continue to give out hours of free content. Hope you guys enjoyed the 100th episode of the flagship on Thursday. Great job to the 2 bad Chads, Chad Sneed, Chad Smith. You guys killed it. You guys continue to build this Turnbuckle Tavern brand that we all call home. It's a home for pro wrestling fans. And you guys, we wouldn't be here without you. And I know Hawk likes to take credit for it as well. I'll give him some credit. He's been around for it. I believe it's like 96 episodes as well. So yeah. Shout out to Hawk. You know, all kidding aside, he is just as valuable to Tavern as we are. We are a unit, Mike Bellcaster.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and a girthy unit at that.
Yeah, girthy as well. Leave a 5-star review. Go to turnbuckletavern.com. Buy a shirt or a mug. And that leads me to this. We got some new merch, man. Dropping some merch here. We got our official Shot of Nostalgia shirt. We also have the Tavern Daddy shirt. I figured that's a nostalgia trip. I'm definitely buying both. Make sure you guys do as well. That is a great thing to be doing and checking out. Go to prowrestlingtees.com/tavern. Buy some more merch. Support the Tavern. We also have some from the Teespring as well. This is like the Forbidden Door merch. We got the Anti-Taskmaster. We've been asking for it. You've been asking for it, but you finally have it. We also have that classic, it's not Haku, it's Ming, or go fuck yourself. That shirt exists. Fits the timeline here because we are dealing with the best era of Ming. So yeah, support it. Go out and buy it. There's some great stuff there. Not just our show, but there's a lot of different shows that have some good stuff all over the place.
100%. There's shirts for everything Tavern there, and then some, man. I mean, we got a lot going on. So support your homies. Give us a little back massage there with a t-shirt sale or 2. We very much appreciate it.
And make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube. You guys are watching this video. Give us a like. Hit subscribe. It's so easy. It's just a click of a button. We're offering you so much free content. You don't see our Shot of Nostalgia logo on here, but there's so much other stuff you can check out. We got the fucking GCW show. We can get you another fix of Mike Bellcaster. We got Fig Night. Again, Mike Bellcaster. We got the Frauds on Raw down. I still love them, though. I'm their champ. AW wrap-up, and we have the Honor Society. We're also going to be having Nick Storm and also Young Anthony coming at us with Before Our Time. We're continuing to get all the content. Make sure you guys support the show in any way you can. It goes a very, very long way. So I think that's all the shilling we have to do. We can get right into 1996, right?
I like it, man. Pull back before the internet was the internet, and we're going back into reading the articles by paper, newsletters, whatever it be, right?
We are, and I've been pouring through the Dave Meltzer writings of 1996, and I don't think he ever would have thought that, a young man who was once 7 at the time is now reading it and applying it. And I'm looking at every word he's saying, and I'm really downloading into my brain, because the thing I'm noticing, and we'll get into specifics, it's so relevant today. The things that he's saying in 1996, it's not just appropriate, it's almost apropos and eerie how appropriate it can apply to wrestling in 2022. It's bizarre.
Yeah, no, I could not agree more. I think he was definitely on his game back then, and it just goes to show. I mean, we're going through it now. A lot of really deep news, like tidbits going on there, and Meltzer was running the game before the game was running it. It wasn't something you could just go to a website and pay into. You had to subscribe to the newsletter. You could still get the newsletter sent to you by mail if you choose so. It's a wild thing, man.
He cornered the market when the market didn't exist, and I give him a lot of credit. People give him grief, but he's the lifeblood of our news source here, so I respect the man. I'm gaining even more respect for him and Brian Alvarez over at Wrestling Observer newsletter. It's amazing. So let's get into it. Today we're going to be reviewing January 29th and the February 5th episode of WCW NITRO. As I mentioned, each week we will be reviewing 2 episodes, including a pay-per-view when they come up. Bellcaster and I have freshly watched these episodes. And as we talk about all the time, it is truly a shot of nostalgia. We recommend that you follow along by watching the episodes as they come up. You have a week to get it in. Treat it as homework. Make sure you guys are popping along. Yeah, I think you will enjoy the show either way, but I think even more so when you watch it freshly as well, because even if you watch 1996 WCW, there's something you forgot. I guarantee, go back and check it out. It's a quick watch. I think a total is probably an hour and a half, maybe, without commercials. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and they throw the commercials in there, which I appreciate, because it's a blast.
Oh, man. So we are going to be reviewing next week Super Bowl 6, and I'll go over the schedule when we get to that part, but we are quickly approaching the pay-per-view, the first pay-per-view we will be reviewing, and it's the Go Home Show, February 5th, so it's going to be awesome to review with you. And the beautiful part is, dude, we got bumpers now.
Oh, yes. I'm so excited for the bumpers because, as we all know, Chad Smith is just the killer of all the digital design here down at the Tavern, and including Shot of Nostalgia now. So make sure you guys throw a comment in there. Say you like the bumpers. Say you don't like the bumpers. Let us know. Give us some feedback, man.
Please give us some feedback. I know you'll love the bumpers. And you know what? What's better than ending a long work week with happy hour?
Poor Dusty, man.
So before we get into the news of wrestling, let's really immerse ourselves back into 1996. Let's go back to May 6, 1996. And I went to a website that performed a very in-depth research of the day and what happened. As we mentioned, and we're probably going to say it all year, our president's Bill Clinton. We have the UK Prime Minister, Sir John Major. Pope St. John Paul II was leading the Catholic Church. In that special week of May, many people in the U.S. were always listening to Always Be My Baby by Mariah Carey. In UK, Fast Love by George Michael was in the top 5 hits. Breaking the Waves, directed by Lars Van Trier, was one of the most viewed movies released in 1996, while The Dilbert Principle by Scott Adams was one of the best-selling books. If you like video games, you were probably playing Cheesy or Dragon Ball Z or The Legend of Zelda. And today, dude, very appropriate to what we're doing, on this day, 1996, May 6th, Howard Stern radio show premiered in Hartford, Connecticut on WCCC 106.9 FM, and a legend was born.
Yeah, wow, man. Yeah. Talk about a throwback. You got some Howard Stern action going on there. It's going to be fantastic, right, Robin? It's going to be good. What a trip, man. And to think that it was just starting there. I mean, the guy became a conglomerate in the radio / digital radio space. Yeah, still is to this day, man. Yeah,
changed the game. The guy has it made. He works from home now. I think he works like twice a week or 3 times a week, and he's earned it. You know what? I mean, he changed. How many people could say they changed a way of media? He truly did that. He changed the way radio was done, and people are trying to model what he did and replicate it. And maybe someone will step above him, but for now, he's pretty much the king there as far as that form of media goes.
Wow.
Well, let's get into why we're here. Pro wrestling. January 1996, across all of WCW, we have the last newsletter of January, believe it or not. And it was posted on the day that Nitro aired on the 29th, 1996. So, first set of news. Off the strength of a return of the former Elizabeth Palfo, also known as Miss Elizabeth and the Road Warriors, changing both the WCW singles and tag titles the night before, and a mainstream publicity tie-in using Kevin Green of the Pittsburgh Steelers just days before the Super Bowl, WCW's Clash of Champions of the 23rd of January from Las Vegas drew a 4.5 rating and a 6.6 share. I know those numbers don't mean a lot to you. They give us the viewers later, I believe, but it was one of the highest viewed shows in WCW history at the time. What are your thoughts on that? I think we're seeing the budding of the boom period of wrestling right here.
Yeah, no, this is definitely, the sprout is growing out of the ground. Some big moves are happening, and the fan base is rapidly growing to a point that we have never seen and probably will never see again. So very interesting to see that it starts with this Clash of the Champions. Really cool, really awesome, man.
Yeah, so based on that, we had the return of Elizabeth probably, I think it was 2 weeks ago at this point. There had been talk at the time for plans to do an in-depth, meaningful program between Elizabeth and Nancy Benoit, aka Woman, but these type of plans change on moment's notice, although both are now in regular roles. Woman was attempting to save her job in ECW, which would appear to not have meant long-term plans had fallen through, or at least temporarily, although by press time, it was supposed to be settled and make them both regular characters. Kevin Sullivan, anti-Taskmaster, had offered to keep her job and still do the WCW gig. At this point, Paul Heyman was planning on finishing her up at the January 27th Philadelphia show and isn't interested in using any WCW performers unless they are willing to allow them to cleanly put over his guys on the television show. So as we get further and further in the newsletter, you're seeing some discrepancy. ECW is used as sort of a feeder avenue for both WWF and WCW. But I think as ECW started to grow, they were like, you know what, stop stepping on our guys, and we want to be put over in a good way. And the relationship with WCW sort of fizzled out. Do you remember ECW guys working collaboratively with WCW at this time?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of back and forth, mainly on the ECW side. We would get your WCW talent pop in. We've seen Public Enemy just signed with WCW at the time. We're just removed from that. You're kind of seeing a lot of cherry picking coming from the Turner side of things, picking out the talent over there. Paul Lee was not having any of it, though. If you can't put over the ECW talent, then there's no reason to have a working relationship. And I kind of agree with Paul's statement here. If you're going to bring in one side of people, you guys got to work together and make it happen. And I know there was a lot of push forward for the WCW side of things to get more over because they're trying to establish that they are the number one broadcast in all of pro wrestling. And but Paul Heyman is definitely not in the wrong here.
Yeah, and it's very relevant today when you're seeing GCW lend out some stars from their end and go to different places, and even Impact on Dynamite last night. We saw W. Morrissey, who was a main event level star, coming over, and not a squash job by Wardlow, but lost. Yeah. So what does that make them look like? You would think now, and same as then, there probably was a handshake deal of, you do this for me now, I'll return the favor by giving you a bigger star to boost the rating. Maybe you have the Young Bucks show up on Impact, things like that.
Yeah.
Kenny Omega was their Impact champion. He was showing up on their pay-per-views. That goes a long way in building a relationship.
Oh yeah, especially during the year that it was happening. I mean, we were going through the big thing of the pandemic, and Kenny Omega he was there every show, every pay-per-view. Tony Khan was in the crowd for those shows. We got a lot of love on the AEW side towards Impact. And I think they did more for Impact than Impact did for AEW. So you're getting a lot of reminiscence of both, and it's crazy.
Absolutely. So also in the newsletter, they're talking about how pay-per-view buy rates have started to nosedive. We talked about the comparison to UFC had coming out as a pay-per-view powerhouse, and that's still relevant today. They're continuing to do big numbers on pay-per-view. WCW at this point, they were not doing any house shows, and WWF were cutting back to 18 shows per month as far as live shows and house shows combined, which meaning there is less work and less money except for the select top guys on the card.
Yeah.
Because WCW was a different approach. They were giving away the marquee matchups live on Nitro, as we're seeing as we get to these 2 episodes. We see marquee matchups up and down the card. Meltzer does note, though, both shows are growing. Wrestlings continue to thrive. And last week we discussed potentially moving away from a weekly episodic type of approach where you're going to be building storylines and waiting for pay-per-views and get people to buy it. But it looks like this turn has made people believe there's meaning in putting on good TV shows and getting good ratings because it leads to more money.
Absolutely. And more money equals more opportunity above and beyond for both groups, not just the talent, but the also the office. So, yeah, man, it's business is picking up, as they like to say in the business.
Yeah, business is picking up, and we are literally at the door knocking on the boom period, the biggest boom period in wrestling history, and one we'll probably never see again as far as total fans and total viewers. But watching both WWF Raw and WCW Nitro, and also add on top of that the weekends people consuming ECW.
Yeah,
it's just a beautiful time to be a wrestling fan, and I don't know if it will exist again, especially in the way things are formatted with how we consume our wrestling now, because at the time, must-see TV, it was Nitro and Raw live, and if you missed it, unless you were taping it with your VCR, you weren't able to watch it. That was it.
Yeah, and VCRs were not cheap. Tapes weren't cheap. I mean, the tapes were a little cheaper than buying the actual VCR itself. I mean, those were expensive pieces of equipment back then. Top of the line. If you had a very fancy home entertainment system, you had a VCR, you had the sound system, you had the big speakers. Remember how big speakers used to be back then? It's bigger than I am in this chair right now. It's crazy. So, yeah, if you weren't one of those guys who videotaped everything, you were probably missing out on something at least,
Absolutely. And so further down in the newsletter, WWF announced a match with the Huckster versus the Nacho Man with Billionaire Ted as the special referee, and showed that on pay-per-view after the tag title match, a compilation clip of skits 1 and 3. Skit 2 was the steroid theme being eliminated, so they just only did the 1 and 3. The match, as Meltzer said, will be probably hilarious, particularly since it will probably coincide with the Hogan versus Savage being the main focus on the WCW storylines. Blah, blah, blah. Continuing to talk about this weekly, it's all over the newsletter. It's cheap shot after cheap shot on both ends, mostly WWF taking shots at WCW, and it's interesting because we see Vince kind of take the high road a lot now. I know he's the big dog and he doesn't have to, fight for his spot anymore. But it's interesting to see him taking all these cheap shots, especially as we talk about week to week. Steroids were just as prevalent in WWF as they were in WCW, no matter what.
No, yeah. Sports in general at this time. I mean, there wasn't a sport that wasn't steroid influenced. And I feel like he did a lot of his dogging at this time. This was Vince's time to shine at taking shots. I don't think he really did it that much after this, besides a few spots here and there, especially when he eventually bought WCW. That was his big victory on the top of the hill. But yeah, WCW was nowhere near as influenced by taking shots. I think at this time we got a lot of more pure showing.
Yeah, Eric Bischoff was forced to make. He would have to react. It would never be Eric. We would see Eric Bischoff later on being the aggressor with the challenging Vince to a fight and all that. But at this time, he was just on the defense where he was talking about. So right here in the newsletter, it says Eric Bischoff responded on the WCW hotline to the WWF skits in a 10-minute segment with Mike Tenay that ran on 123. Bischoff said he didn't think it was a gamble at all to go head-to-head with Monday Night Raw because he believed his company had the superior talent, and said he felt Raw was so entrenched and people are creatures of habit that it would take 2 years before WCW could match Raw's ratings. Didn't take 2 years. It took less than that. I mean, pretty honest from Eric here. He gets a lot of credit or discredit for being a blowhard and egomaniac sort of guy, but pretty honest and insightful here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's especially coming off the hotline, which was like a gimmicked hotline. You didn't always get a lot. It was basically your form of dirt sheets back in the day. You wanted to know news, even if it was outside of the company. They were giving away tidbits all over the place. Not always true, not always not true though either. And this is one instance where Bischoff was just kind of open and honest about it. and he was very right, as history will tell. So it's crazy.
The other thing he did mention, and comes up all the time, and we on all of our shows, he
Yeah.
had said he didn't believe there was such a thing as oversaturation on TV as long as you work to keep the quality of the television high. He said pay-per-view buy rates have been dropping for the past 18 months, so he didn't believe Nitro was the cause. He said the WWF putting the in-your-house pay-per-view shows, which he called nothing but a television show with a price tag added to it, have been more of the culprit for why people don't want to spend 2 months worth of pay-per-view buy rates on, like, he's pairing it with, it's going to take a little bit to change the trend and change the habits of the wrestling fan to tune into Nitro instead of Raw. And he's understanding it's a process. It's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah. No, I remember buying those in your house pay-per-views. I remember buying the WCW pay-per-views. The in your house things were like televised house shows, maybe. It was something you were getting content there. Eventually they beefed it up a little bit more, but it took a while for them to establish that. And the same thing, it's just, you get tired of seeing, nobody wants to pay, $20-$30 for a SmackDown, especially in this day and age. So crazy.
Absolutely. That's essentially what they were. I mean, if you go back and watch WWF Beware of Dog, it's essentially a Raw episode from the time that the card is not, I mean, Triple H versus Mark Marrow opening that show. If I just recently watched it, and that's a match that you're not paying on pay-per-view. It was just habitual viewing. And I think that's what people had to move away from for WCW to eventually be successful. And that did happen because the casual fan joined in and they had no preconceived notion of what wrestling should be. They just hopped into the hot product, and WCW happened to be that.
Yeah.
So looking at more of that interview is fascinating, and skimming through it, I actually found the audio of it. I wanted to put it on here, but it was a little like craggly, and it was better for me just to read the quotes.
Dial up.
It was very bad. As far as, if you guys are interested, and I could post it in the Discord, you guys can check it out. Join the Discord, by the way. It's on the first link on turnbuckletavern.com. But as for the Billionaire Ted skits, he said clearly it's desperation. He refused to discuss any lawsuit that he's going to be pursuing for defamation or anything like that. But he did hint that it would be. The other thing he did say, he was talking about Goldust because Dustin Rhodes had been such a big part of the WCW roster. Yeah. And he said, Vince, if that's the epitome of your creativity, I feel sorry for you. He started to praise Dustin Rhodes as a wrestler and as a person and said it was embarrassing what McMahon is doing to him. He continued the I feel sorry for you line when addressing the Billionaire Ted match at WrestleMania, saying, I feel sorry for Vince McMahon if he has to hire imposters to draw a number on his pay-per-views, and finished by saying that McMahon was the Vern Gagne of the 1990s and that his time has come and passed. So we never saw that Billionaire Ted match on pay-per-view at WrestleMania. That would have been 1996. That would have been WrestleMania 12, right?
Yeah.
So we didn't get that on pay-per-view, maybe because of the legal action that was being threatened. But interesting quote about Goldust here. I would say the highlight of Dustin's career happened to be the Goldust character. He took the creativity needed there to become the legend that he is. And I don't know how Goldust feels about it, but he really, like, to say it was embarrassing for Goldust, I don't know. I mean, at the time, it was edgy for sure. It was out of the box, but I don't know. Very interesting for him to say that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Goldust had one of his best programs with Piper during this time, and it was, I don't know, it might have been edgy and controversial, but I mean, that's what Bischoff wrote the book, Controversy Creates Cash. It's not a lie. Very interesting about the Nacho Man Ted, Billionaire Ted stuff though too, because this is not the only time that we will see WWF using fake characters of guys that have gone over to WCW, and it seems like even it was still lingering after that, and it just seems like a very dirty move. I don't know. It was a lot of, it was hokey. It wasn't really funny stuff. You had the Billionaire Ted and I'm the Nacho Man, and like it was really hokey back for a WWF segment. I could see why they didn't do it, minus legal reasoning.
It's cheesy, and it's a low blow. If you're supposed to be the higher level of wrestling and you want to be the guy coming from the upper hand, to throw those things out on the table, it looks like you're desperate. I mean, I agree with Eric here.
Yeah.
More to the story here. WCW Worldwide and the pro tapings were moving from Disney in Tampa. Disney Studios wasn't taping there. I just thought this was an interesting tidbit because Meltzer made sure to note that there is no real story to the WCW Worldwide and Pro tapings moving from Disney to Universal in Tampa. It's simply that Disney Studios are booked that next week, and also the next set will be in Universal, and they'll be back in Disney in 6 months. That wound up being true. They continue to film there, but just interesting, like that whole era of TV being filmed in bulk in these studios. Obviously, we see NWA do it in Atlanta. We don't really see any of that going on anywhere else, but it sure is I mean, you hear interesting stories on podcasts about different tapings and how they kept storylines going and just how they would film months of TV in the set of a week.
Yeah.
Do you remember watching some of WCW Worldwide? Did you have an interest in watching that, even though it was clearly taped?
I enjoyed it. Yeah. I mean, as the kid I was at the time, I was absolutely like welcoming it. It was another hour of wrestling, you know. It was essentially just a bridge to the next Nitro. Yeah, so it was fun at the time. We kind of see it a little bit now with AEW Dark.
Right.
You know, they do film a lot of Dark very rapidly, and I mean that first week of pandemic where everything really got shut down, I mean, they did 4 to 8 episodes in like 20 something hours. That was intense. And it's kind of where the surgence of like the Best Friends came, because they seen how much dedication they put into those Dark tapings and those Dynamite tapings at the Nightmare Factory when there was no crowd except for a few workers up against the guardrails. So there's definitely a science to it. I guess it works, especially when you're in a tight situation, much like we were. So it was beneficial for the test of time for pro wrestling, I think.
Yeah, the studio wrestling has a certain nostalgic flair, and I'm not sure if it would benefit product today. I know that, like I mentioned, NWA, but they're doing it for simply the nostalgia factor, and it's a budgetary thing, I'm sure, because it's not expensive. But I do love some of those old promos or old matches where there's probably 40 people in the crowd, and you hear the same women that are super fans. I can just think of the Dusty super fans, the fans that did not like Dusty, and he was a face at the time. And if you watch the network, they're like, Dusty, you suck, even though he's such a baby face at the time. But those people were so invested in the product. But yeah, just a different time, man.
No, absolutely. And studio wrestling was fun, I thought, back then. It was interesting. And it's like NWA does it a lot now, and it's got a nostalgia throwback feel to it, and it's kind of fun. Doesn't warrant a lot of views necessarily, but I mean, we Dark's in Universal now. TNA wasn't Universal for the longest time. Now, of course, they weren't taping bulk. It wasn't a lot of episodes, but it was still had that studio setup where you got the same crowd every time. A lot of it was tourists. There wasn't like, not always was it wrestling diehards that were going to these things. So it was a good way to hook the casual fan, possibly, if there was any benefit to it.
Yeah, if you look at the newsletter, we'll have the listings of the tickets sold and then the tickets paid for. Most of those WCW Worldwides will be, Meltzer would list freebies. So that would just to have the crowd there. It was beneficial to have people that were there, happen to be in Universal for the day or Disney for the day, that they wanted them there to just be a part of the background noise, I guess, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people wax poetic about that time and place of the studio wrestling. I mean, it has a time and place, but I don't think we see the growth of WCW, obviously, without doing the live shows and having the live nature of Nitro. It's night and day when you watch the old WCW. People, I love the characters you see on there and all these old legends. I mean, Ric Flair, Harley Race, guys that are wrestling there. But it's amazing the jump WCW took in such a short time period to where they were putting on what we're watching on a weekly basis now.
No, 110%, my friend.
Yeah, so next on the news, WCW is talking about wanting to turn Flair face and make him into a living legend character, as people have been suggesting for about 6 years. But Flair is more comfortable as a heel, and there are problems. Even after getting the win at the Clash, Flair was still making noises about wanting to leave because he was unhappy at the direction and push he thought they were going to give him. So not only are we getting grief from Macho Man not liking the direction of his character, you're getting it from Flair. Hogan, I'm sure, is piping up. You got a lot of strong personalities in there, and Flair probably being top 2 of those personalities. Well deserved in a lot of ways. He is a living legend. Even at that time, He already has accomplished so much for that company under that umbrella. But yeah, I mean, Flair as a face, we saw it in bits and pieces throughout his career. At this time, I don't know if it fits. I mean, he's such a good heel with the Horsemen.
Yeah, there's no way you could turn, especially when you have that star power up there. You cannot turn a Ric Flair face. You can't have him break up the Horsemen. Like, it just would not make sense. Or even if you turn all the Horsemen face, like, what are you doing? Like, what is that going to benefit the product? You're going to lose out on having some of the best heels in a group together, a faction. And I think that's what really put the faces over of the company at the time. Like, you couldn't have these matches we're seeing with Macho Man and Flair. Like, it wouldn't make sense if Flair was a face and Macho was a heel. It'd just be weird. Like, this is still like a little before the edginess came in. So yeah, I think turning people at this spot would have been a clusterfuck.
Yeah, we would see a lot of struggle with WCW's identity with Flair at the center of it. Like, do they want to move away from the old school mentality and fair or not? It's not fair to Flair, as Bobby Heenan would say.
Woo.
It is Flair is what people identify with old school WCW, and history has shown us that Eric Bischoff did not want Ric Flair to be the guy anymore.
Yeah.
At this time, he was still very valuable. And it's funny, as a living legend, he still had so much left to go. I think he retired in 2008. So at the time, it was like they're kind of giving him his swan song, but he still had over 20 years left.
That's wild. Absolutely just mind-boggling to think of.
Yeah.
And we see that with a lot of people nowadays where they're like, so-and-so is getting too old, but most of these guys are in their early 40s. They could keep going for another 15 years at least. And I mean, give or take injuries and whatever the hell happens. But yeah, you can't count anybody out. I mean, Ric Flair, we just seen a video of him on the socials where he was wrestling around with Jay Lethal. And he's 70 something years old.
Much to the chagrin of Charlotte Flair. But like, even looking at the ages, it's so interesting to look at because we have guys like Bryan Danielson are of the same age that Ric Flair was at this time. And you also, I mean, it's just insane. Like 40's the new 25 at this point in the wrestling business. But yeah, I mean, we could talk about that all day, but we're going to see the evolution of really the disconnect of what Eric Bischoff wanted WCW to be and what I guess a guy like Ric Flair represented. And you saw Ric Flair being treated in maybe some unfair ways that people might want to look at it that way. And lost pretty much his will to be the legend he was. And he had to rebuild that when he got back to WWE because of Triple H, but not getting too far ahead of ourselves.
Oh yeah.
So throughout the newsletter and throughout wrestling in 1996, WWF is trying to position itself as the underdog fighting for survival because this bad guy billionaire is trying to put them out of business, which actually from McMahon's perspective is probably how he actually sees it. And it's pretty much true, as Meltzer puts it. When you look at this thing in historical perspective, lots of important details have been left out, which would cloud the conclusion people could reach on it. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? It may work to a small extent in getting some sympathy for WWF and people to be mad at WCW for stealing the talent. But it's funny if you really look at it. Vince developed his whole brand on stolen talent, go up and down the WrestleMania 1 card, all over the place, guys that are made names elsewhere. I mean, Hulk Hogan alone. I mean, you built it on somebody else. So getting mad, it's so hypocritical.
Yeah, weird, especially looking at how it is now. He's the billionaire guy. I mean, not to say that the other, Tony Khan's running out of financials anytime soon, but it's just wild to see how Vince kind of led that to be the case back then, and then we go to the future and he's this guy now. He's billionaire Vince. It's pretty funny, man.
Yeah, it really is. Like, it's just crazy how time changes perspective, and history lends itself to all these new things in the news we're finding in 1996. So the last thing in the January 29th newsletter is, and it's a quick one, I'm sure we won't spend too much time on it, a left-wing newsletter called The Alternative endorsed Bob Backlund for president. A story about it was written straight, although it was obviously meant as tongue-in-cheek. Bob Backlund, if you remember, there was the thing on TV that he was running for president. I didn't actually realize he was doing it. I thought it was just for wrestling canon.
Yeah.
Do you remember that stuff being in the news?
I remember it being a gimmick. I don't remember it being real. Like,
Dude was living the gimmick. I think he was actually trying, never got anywhere with it. But I mean, maybe setting the standard. We see wrestlers now being politicians.
yeah.
I mean, Kane right now. Like,
yeah, Jesse Ventura back then, man. It wasn't too much longer after this 1996 era where Jesse became the governor of Minnesota, and it's wild to like think about. And there's still we're getting a lot of vibes of people like, oh, The Rock should run for president. You know, there was the whole stint in WCW, Hollywood for president.
Yep,
and, you know, he was coming out, and so it's you set the standard, man.
Yeah, I mean, we end our flagship show every week with Dwayne The Rock Johnson for president. That's what the Two Bad Chads say. So at the time, like, if you would have told me in 1999 when he's walking around with the corporation and doing the eyebrow and all that he would potentially be president 25 years later, I would have never believed you. But now it seems like anything is possible, as Kevin Garnett would say.
Yeah, listen, why not?
So February 5th newsletter, you ready to dive into this? This is the more
yes.
interesting part.
I'm here for it.
All right. So this, I didn't know anything about this, and you may be like, no, I knew everything about this, and that's fair. And I want to hear your perspective on it either way. So for the first time in the history of wrestling at this time, nearly every wrestling promotion in the United States, Japan, and Mexico had come to an agreement this past week to combine for a show tentatively titled the World Wrestling Festival on May 18th, 1996, which is currently planned for either the Los Angeles Sports Arena or the adjacent Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. So at the time, everybody agreed to be there, including WWF, including WCW, AAA, New Japan Pro Wrestling, EMLL, and I believe All Japan as well.
Wow.
Signed up, ready to go. Thoughts on that, and what does it sound like that's going on today?
I mean, listen, tickets just went on sale. It would be yesterday, if you're listening to this on your Friday, but we just got the Forbidden Door pay-per-view went on sale. It's a mashup. You got AEW, New Japan, kind of like a wrestle fest, if you will. I mean, we're going to see some stuff. It's going to be live on pay-per-view, which a lot of things really aren't nowadays. Yeah, this sounds absolutely batshit bonkers.
So at the time when this was written, Meltzer was expecting WWF to be there. So I went further in history because I was like, there's no way WWF went. And I was correct in thinking that. I had to go months later. They pulled out probably about a month before it happened. And this is why. The World Wrestling Federation and Extreme Championship Wrestling were the only two major promotions in North America not to participate in the show, although this was not unexpected given their tense relationship that had been growing with WCW during the Monday Night Wars. So up until that point, it seemed like everyone was going to put the differences aside for a good cause, but they couldn't get it done. This has been a theme with Vince Jr. Vince Sr. had no problem doing this, sending Andre the Giant to Japan on a handshake deal. Hulk Hogan, same thing with him. Vince Jr. was never able to do it. Maybe the insecurity because he knew he wouldn't do the right thing for opposing promotions. You know, maybe that was what was at the root of it. But this is so fascinating to me. I'm going to get more into it. But, I mean, imagine this going on today, a wrestling fest with every promotion in the world meeting up somewhere.
It would be wild. It would be bigger than WrestleMania. Maybe that's why it never happened.
Yeah.
Maybe Vince was like, I can't put my product out there and make something bigger, which, I mean, why not? If you guys are all going to make money off of it, imagine that happening now. It would have to be like a fucking 6-day festival. Like, it would be huge. But
just think about what that would do for the wrestling as a whole. And I don't know if Vince could ever see that, outside of WWE interest and what it does for them. But, we use this cliche term all the time, a rising tide lifts all ships. And I think WWE, they're the reason why a boom period won't happen, because they won't let anybody else. And, despite them, AEW has risen from the ashes of WCW. But despite that, WWE won't allow it to happen. And this would be the perfect platform in 2022 for it to happen. Imagine WWE at a Forbidden Door. Imagine what that would do for wrestling.
Yeah.
What would the buy rate for that pay-per-view be? Like,
it would be ridiculous. Yeah, you're talking about everything all together at once. You're also bringing back a WWE pay-per-view, regardless if it's branded that way or not. I mean, you're putting more revenue into the company just by offering it on pay-per-view. I think that's one of the forgotten arts of the pay-per-view concept. That makes a lot of money for you. I mean, look at the last AEW pay-per-view outsold all their shows already, and it's just continuing to grow there. And that's what we want. If they all partnered together, this would just be, it would be WrestlePalooza, man. It would be absolutely wild.
So I became pretty much obsessed with this the past week. I was researching, got all the information for you guys on the show. I'm going to lay it out for you, how it all came together and what happened after the fact. So the show was put together by Antonio Inoki and Steve Nakata, the executive director of the Japan U.S. Sports Federation, at the press time, which is, as I mentioned, February 5th, 1996. They had verbal agreement to participate from WWF, WCW, AAA, EMLL, and New Japan Pro Wrestling. We know eventually ECW and WWF didn't participate. It was well known all along about the latter three companies being part of the show, and it was expected that WCW, with its working agreement with New Japan at the time, would also play a part in it. Nakata met with Linda McMahon on 125 in Las Vegas, who was the president at the time of Titan Sports, as we know, and got her to agree for them to put on a match on the same stage as their bitter rivals, WCW. So Linda McMahon was impressed with the idea of being a part of something this type with so much community grassroots support. It could elevate the image of pro wrestling in the U.S. Eric Bischoff, on the other hand, of WCW, was the only company to hedge support, saying that its company would only be involved if the committee promises to treat WCW and WWF on equal footing, and if the proposal gets approved by the executive committee. So Linda McMahon, it's funny, like WWF supporting grassroots, it just like those two words don't even go together anymore. But it was Eric Bischoff who recognized, hey, like if we're going to be put on this stage, I can't have my guys looking weak at all, because he probably knew Vince or Linda or whoever would be in the ear of the bookers, like, listen, we need to look strong. We need our guys to go over. We need Bret Hart or whoever would be the WWF representative at the time, Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
They have to look like they're the stars of the show, coming down on a zip line, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
They would make sure that they got star treatment. And I think Bischoff was right in being hesitant.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, all companies are right in being, there to get their talent over. I mean, that's the thing. But there's a better way to do it than, making it all about you. I mean, you guys could have made one main event, say it's Bret versus Macho Man, right? And then Bret goes over, and then you do like Flair versus Diesel, and Flair goes over. Like you could have made it work on a welcoming platform. I think they really missed the ball with this, because I think this would have been huge, and it would have changed how pro wrestling is today. It just in general, this would have broken down so many different barriers and made things more business friendly, more welcoming to work together.
Yeah. WCW may be alive today if something like this happened. That's not being an exaggeration.
Yeah.
You could have a relationship wherever you get in the same room, drinks are being poured, you guys can all get along, and like, all right, let's put our differences aside for the betterment of professional wrestling, not only North America, but the world. Because at the time, we as fans now take for granted that it's such an accepted form of entertainment. At this time, you had to overcome being a professional wrestler to do anything else, whether it be an actor, a politician.
Yeah.
It was looked upon as this strike against you, like you did this dirty type of profession. We want nothing to do with you. Yeah. Advertisements were the same thing.
No, absolutely. Unless you were fully on sponsoring the show, a la Slim Jim, or you were getting a TV show on TBS. It was Thunder in Paradise. It's crazy. I think this would have put pro wrestling on a whole different spectrum. And talk about big shows. This would have been like a Coliseum-esque type thing. You're going above stadium shows.
Listen to what they wanted to do and what they wound up doing as well without WWF involved, but it didn't have the same publicity without WWF involved at the time because they were the biggest wrestling promotion at the time.
Yeah.
So the show which would be the headline event of a 3-day international festival, which would also include a world food festival and other international entertainment activities similar to the production of the North Korean government put on in late April, is expected to become an annual affair put together by Inoki. Inoki has already talked about running a similar event in 97, the year after, at 130,000 seat Azteca Stadium in Mexico City. And an event in 1997 or 1998 in Havana, Cuba, after his meeting with Fidel Castro last week, where Castro in return named a small island in Cuba Inoki Island. So they didn't have plans for just this one-time festival. They wanted it to be a thing. And I think you nailed it, dude. It probably would be bigger than WrestleMania. And that's probably what Vince was saying. Like, Linda, sounds like a great idea. It doesn't work for me, pal.
Yeah.
It doesn't work for me.
He calls Linda pal all the time, too. It's great.
Well, I mean, you know what? That's how you keep the relationship spicy, you know?
Listen, pal. Listen, talk about innovators of wrestling that don't get enough credit. Inoki presenting this is huge. This is the first time ever hearing about this. I'm rattled in the brain right now going,
this is how I've been all week. I've been waiting to get on here and talk to you about this.
Yeah.
I've been bursting at the seams to have a discussion about this.
Dude, but the potential of what this could have been is just, I don't even think it's fathomable. I don't think you could make a prediction of how well this would have went. I mean, you're bringing food vendors and international food fest. This is a worldwide thing. People from Japan coming in. This would have turned pro wrestling into a Disney-esque conglomerate. You know, this would have been massive, not just in the States, but worldwide. Inoki Island. Imagine if they sold out Inoki Island.
They're hanging from the rafters at Inoki Island.
The palm trees are swaying here. I'm Bobby the Brain here. It would have been crazy,
dude,
though, man.
It's insane to even think about, because as I'm reading this, I'm like, this is so appropriate for what's going on today. It was like, within a week of us just learning about Forbidden Door, or 2 weeks since Forbidden Door was announced, that concept has been brewing along all throughout wrestling history. And it takes two progressive minds at the top of business that with the ability to make those decisions to do it. And Tony Khan is not as insecure as all these other old heads in wrestling that would say, no way, I'm afraid about how much talent will be showcased. And so ironic, because Vince is a guy who they show on their product every week. Wins and losses don't matter. They don't matter. So
it's wild.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's got to be the ego. I mean, it has to be the ego of this can't be bigger than my product, WrestleMania.
Well, how could you sell WrestleMania as a Super Bowl of wrestling when this exists, where you have 6 large promotions all there, like the world champions interacting?
Yeah.
I mean, it would take a lot of finesse and people that could put their differences aside to book this. Yeah. Because who goes over if you're having, these guys in the same ring? But think about the opportunities that existed that just they let slide away.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you could have done a match a piece, throwing in talent from each company, putting them against each other even, and just take a you win this one, we'll win the next one. You win this one, we'll win. We'll give one to New Japan. We'll give one, to Noah. Like besides the ego, it's an easy concept to put over, man.
So I'm pulling up, at the time, it wound up being called the World Wrestling Peace Festival. You guys can look it up on Wikipedia. Wow. There was only one that was hosted, and the card was pretty interesting. It was interesting enough that I'm looking at it now. I'll just read you some matches here. They had WCW guys wrestle each other, and I guess it's because they couldn't come to an agreement. But you had AAA wrestling, New Japan wrestling wrestlers, NWA wrestling with New Japan wrestlers. You also had CMLL guys wrestling AAA guys. There was one match with New Japan between WCW. Lex Luger defeated Masa Saito in a singles match. We also had Rey Mysterio Jr. and Ultimo Dragon defeating Heavy Metal and Psychosis from AAA.
Wow.
The Giant defeated Sting for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. So I understand why you didn't have the Giant defending his title against someone from New Japan or whatever.
Yeah.
But then also the main event of the show was in a 14-match card. Antonio Inoki of New Japan Pro Wrestling and Dan Severn defeated Yoshiaki Fujiwara and Oleg Takarov. Yeah, I mean, the card is pretty underwhelming. Did not do as well as probably everyone thought. The event had an attendance of 5,964. 9,600. Let me say that again, pal. Easy for me to say. 5,964, which is far less than the 17,000 that promoters were expecting.
Yeah,
which attributed to a poor choice of venue, lack of advertising, the fact that WWF didn't participate. Yeah, I mean, it died because of WWF.
Yeah, and listen, I guarantee you that there was some verbal agreement between ECW and WWF saying that we're not going to do this together, and this might have led to a closer relationship between Paul and Vince. You know, this might have been the payroll conversation. Like, if you guys don't go, yeah, I'll throw you on the payroll, pal. Yeah, we'll take care of you for a few months. No big deal. Like, it's crazy.
So this was a direct response to the success of Collision in Korea. So if you guys are listening to this, like, oh, I knew this happened already, it's Collision in Korea. No, this is different. Collision in Korea was a different thing that WCW and New Japan Pro Wrestling put together. The year after, they were trying to get all the promotions together. So although successful and similar, Collision in Korea is more similar to what we're seeing with Forbidden Door back then. And there is a discrepancy about the attendance at the time, but they did a total of 355,000 over the course of 2 nights. Day 1 was 165,000. Day 2 was 190,000. Tagline: 2 legends, 1 country. Main evented by the fact, let's see, day 2 was Antonio Inoki defeating Ric Flair by pinfall. So Ric Flair was able to put his differences aside and get that done. So we could talk about Collision in Korea. There's a whole podcast on it with Something to Wrestle. Listen to us. Yeah. Also check that one out too. They talk about the success of that. But this event is one of the few WCW pay-per-views not available for streaming on WWE Network. So if you want to watch it, you got to find it on Daily Motion or somewhere else illegally because it doesn't exist. WWF got rid of it.
That's crazy. Wild. And I mean, listen, that's what I'm saying. Everybody's willing to go over at some point, and Ric Flair's a testament of that forever. Of course he's going to go over Inoki. He's Ric Flair, goddamn it. Like he got over by putting others over. And he'll say that till his grave, man. It's just everybody can get along if the stars align the right way. And I think it's stupid that it didn't happen, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a missed opportunity because people can't get out of their own way. That's really what it is. Like, you may lose money in the short term by someone being like, you know what, I'm going to buy a WCW shirt because you showcase them on a different platform. But in the end, if everyone's watching wrestling, your product thrives because they're interested in what you're doing. They're going to want to find you as well. And if the thing about the insecurity, and we're going to move on in a sec because I know we got to get to the everything else going on the show with happy hour ending here. Get you fixed. They're trying to get us to get our drinks in. Happy hour prices are ending, so we got to get out of here. It's infuriating because if you put on a quality product on your wrestling TV show, you have nothing to worry about. Worry 100%. About yourself, worry about the match quality. And the insecurity that exists today is because the product sucks. It's because you guys are not putting on good shows, and that's why we'll never see them against an AEW, against a New Japan, because they would just make them look bad.
Yeah, but I mean, I think there's still room to do it, but I don't think we'll ever see it until Vince is gone. And I think Nick Khan's somebody that would totally be open to doing something like this if the business is there. And I think business is there, and it would shatter all expectancies. Just imagine how big a show would be if you had Kenny Omega versus Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who goes over. Don't put the belts on the line. Whatever. Cool. But I mean, you could set up a whole card with, company versus company and still make it work. You could have CM Punk fight a Seth Rollins and then follow it. Punk goes over, then follow it with Kenny will take the loss, but it's going to be a 45-minute beatdown match and it's going to look great and be strong. And it's just something I don't think it's off the table quite yet, but it's just, we need some more movement to happen before anything like that ever happens. That's fucking wild. You blew my mind today.
I appreciate that. I was trying to. I'm glad that I surprised you.
The shot of nostalgia went right through the brain.
Yeah, well, you know what? Sometimes, happy hour does get the buzz started, but let's get right to why we're here. There's so much more in the newsletter. And guys, if you're interested in more, I gave Mike all the notes, and there's much more we could go into, talking about Bischoff signing a 3-year deal to continue running WCW for $350,000 a year, which seems like a low amount for what he brought back to the company. We talk about all the other stuff, but I felt like we need to end on that because that is such a big piece of news. Huge.
Yeah.
Let's time to get our fix, man. You ready for this?
Let's do it.
man, they get better every time.
Hogan was definitely skiing during that brother.
he took it from Macho's stash. They were still good. They were still good friends then.
Yeah.
So for Get Your Fix, guys, we will be reviewing 2 weeks of Nitro. As mentioned, we are talking about the January 29th, 1996 Nitro from Canton Civic Center in Canton, Ohio, the home of the NFL Hall of Fame. And then also we have the February 5th, 1996 from Lakeland Center Jenkins Arena, Lakeland, Florida. Canton Civic Center still exists. Lakeland Center Jenkins Arena does not exist anymore. I did my research on that.
Sad.
Yeah, some of these buildings that WCW ran are just gone now.
Crazy.
So we are going to start with, I'm going to put the banner here, and I know you guys, there's been a lot of love for the 1996 results on the bottom. So if you don't want to be spoiled, don't read it. Just listen to us. You guys can tune in every once in a while, like turn your head and just look at our beautiful faces wearing our suit jackets.
Or do your research, man, and get on board with us and join the Shot of Nostalgia.
Exactly. So just to kind of keep you guys in the loop, as far as current WCW champions are, just for time capsule sake, WCW World Champion Randy Savage, WCW US Champion One Man Gang, WCW World Tag Team Champion Sting and Lex Luger, WCW World Television Champion Johnny B. Bad, and we have Eric Bischoff, Bobby Heenan, and the Emmy Award-winning Steve Mongo McMichael giving us the soundtrack to our childhood. Let's start with the opener, man. Hulk Hogan opens up with Ric Flair with Jimmy Hart, and this was going to be the main event at WrestleMania 8. We were going to be having this match was supposed to be the dream match. Want to talk about Forbidden Door stuff?
Yeah.
When you get these guys together, they've always been, they were in 1992 in WWF together. They came back to WCW. They just never clicked, and it was the same with this match, in my opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this was an ego thing. I just think it was. Well, it might have been a little bit of an ego thing, but I just think, like I said, Flair will do the deed to anybody as long as the money's there, as long as he's wheeling dealing, it's still going to happen. So, and I think we kind of see that throughout this time period. But Hogan, brother, man, I have to be on top of the mountain, man. That's why I'll come out with all the ladies on the show, man. I mean, he was loaded up for that.
So we also have the group of 5 women. They've been narrowed down to the ones we know. So I'll read it to you guys again. Deborah, Linda Hogan, and Woman. And they only serve to clap for Elizabeth as she makes her way down to the ring. She was the star, the returning Elizabeth. First lady of professional wrestling throughout the early 90s, late 80s, continues her run here. She was just as popular. I mean, she brought in a large female audience to wrestling. People tuned in big time to see the Macho Man and Elizabeth get married. So she was a draw.
Oh, 100%.
And I feel like WCW is treating her as a big headline, which is interesting because she never wrestled a day in her life.
No, but she was a character, and like you said, she drew for the female audience. Which is astounding because you're watching big oiled up guys in tights with their muscles out there, but Miss Elizabeth was the hidden key to open up the trunk for that little that group. So it's crazy to see, but it was a big deal in the early 90s, like you said, for WWF and the Macho Man angles and all that. So they're giving her flowers, which is very interesting.
Absolutely. In this match, to me, surprised me that Hogan lost this match and Ric Flair went over here. This was probably something that surprised a lot of people at the time. And I know maybe it was a strategic thing by Hogan because he was getting the reputation of not putting people over. You and I talked all week last week about no selling offense. He did some of that in here. He was no selling some of the chops, hulking up at any given moment. But at the end of the day, Flair got the win here. It was dirty. That's what Flair does. But we're sitting here and Flair won at 11:03. Just a pretty good match, in my opinion. It was better than I expected. Do I think it'd probably be the quality of main eventing WrestleMania 8? No. But it also, for an opener of a Nitro, hell of a match.
Yeah, absolutely. It set the pace for the rest of the show. I thought it was really good. I mean, Hogan, I don't think Hogan no-sold because he was no-selling for a lot of the time. He was just a shitty wrestler, and that was his defense. And that's a retrospective thought. I loved Hogan back in the day. I still pop for him, but I think he just didn't know how to sell well, and that's kind of what led to his rise and demise, and now he's kind of doing this until future happens. But listen, man, this was what Hogan was known for. This is what he was doing, and so he had to put Flair over, I think.
So big thing we have to mention here is the end, because it rears its head for next week and the pay-per-view. So I'm going to read you guys in. Again, it's WCW. There's always chaotic things at the end of the match. It's not just Hogan matches. Every match, there's chaos. People at ringside, similar to when AEW is doing it as well. There's a lot of chaos. So I'm going to read this to you. So Hulk up, big boot, leg drop. Jimmy Hart got on the apron and gets chased down to the floor by Hogan. So he's distracted. Arn Anderson runs in and gets nailed by Hulk while Jimmy Hart goes over and grabs Elizabeth. With Arn on the floor, he goes over and grabs one of Elizabeth's shoes. He hands it over to Flair, who pops Hogan in the eye with the high heel shoe during the pin attempt. Pins him. I probably would have done one more impact move just to pin him after that, but he just rolled over and pinned him, got the win. 1, 2, 3. It took Flair 4 years and 70 matches, but he finally pinned Hogan.
Hogan with a heel move. Literally.
I mean, his finishing move, aside from the figure four, was always some level of cheating, low blows, whatever. So very in character, very on brand for Ric Flair. So I'll take it. Hulk Hogan was bleeding while Savage and Liz try to console him while he's down on the floor. They sold his eye injury for the next couple of weeks. At the time, pretty nasty spot. I mean, the eye spot, you feel a little vulnerable when you see someone get hit in the eye.
Yeah. I mean, if it's ever happened to any of us, I mean, we've all poked our eye at some point. Imagine if it was that impactful, and you see the blood coming out, and it was good storytelling, I thought. Very good storytelling. And it also really did keep in line with the Ric Flair character. And it was a good reason for Hogan to lose. So it worked out great. I thought it was fun.
Next match on the card, we have the Road Warriors versus Faces of Fear. You and I watched this live on the Discord. This was so much fun. Yeah. This was the in-ring return of Hawk and Animal to WCW. Did not know. I'm looking through it. It looks like it's the debut of Faces of Fear. I feel like this is the first time they've teamed in a WCW ring. I'd have to get confirmation on that. But to me, this was a very, very great team in WCW. It doesn't get its, you want to talk about getting flowers. They don't get their flowers for being a good tag team.
Absolutely. And this is everything that you could encompass to being a pro wrestling match to this day and age that people would love. Big, meaty men slapping the meat out of each other. I don't think you can get more stiff than this without a blue chew. This is huge.
So 4 dudes in a ring who do not like to sell. Someone had to, so they were forced to sell some moves. They were shoving each other around until Barbarian hits a big boot. Animal, and I marked it in my notes, was the first to actually sell. So this match was a lot of fun. I had a blast watching it with you guys, and Nick Storm, who was also in there as well, watching this. This was a lot of fun. It was, they were very, very similar in style, and sometimes that's not a good thing, but I thought this was really, really fun for what it was.
Yeah, no, this was like eating steak with a steak. Like sometimes it's not the best thing, but there was enough flavor there, enough fat on the fucking tissue. It was a great time. It really was.
Dude, and I'm all in on the blue Legion of Doom, or at the time the Road Warriors as they're called here. It's just a cool look for them. It's to me, it's almost better. It's like this weird alternate attire that is unlocked. I love it.
Yeah, it popped. It looked really good, and they are the Road Warriors, man. They're gonna come out and do business like they do, but they look fantastic in the blue, man. I'm here for it.
We talked about last week, a lot of matches going short.
Yeah.
The Hogan and Flair match went 11 minutes. This one went 9 minutes and 5 seconds, so they're giving stuff time. But I was loving this match. There was nothing I really didn't like. It was, if you accept that this match is going to be a certain way and you're not looking for a catch-as-catch-can suplexes and tope suicidas and 450 splashes, if you just immerse yourself into these are just guys that are just beating the crap out of each other, I'm all in on it. I loved it.
This is a sanctioned bar fight, basically, and
we don't see this style of wrestling anymore. It doesn't exist. I'm going up and down the AEW and the WWE card. This Road Warrior type of style that used to be so common on all types of wrestling doesn't exist anymore. There's always, the guys are always doing different things, and it's because it doesn't probably sell anymore. But this was the last of their kind, in my opinion.
I loved it, man. Every minute of it.
So we have our good friend Kevin Sullivan and Hugh Morris in the ring. Gene Okerlund's interviewing them. Kevin Sullivan is mad at Arn Anderson, and Double A comes to the ring, and Brian Pillman again, who's all over the show. highlight of this year. I love Brian Pillman. Eventually, we'll see him move over to WWF and take control of his whole narrative, but that's a podcast in itself. Sullivan tells Arn that he would promise to keep Pillman in line. If Arn doesn't discipline Pillman, then they both will have to suffer the consequences. So Arn gives Pillman a tongue lashing like he's his dad, pretty much. Like he just was acting like he was his father. Arn takes off his belt to show Pillman some tough love, and that's when Morris and Sullivan attack. Sullivan grabs the belt and starts whipping Pillman. Arn DDTs Morris and shoves Sullivan off Pillman to send him away. As Morris and Sullivan head to the back, Arn demands a match with them next week on Nitro. Not huge, as you guys know. I'm the anti-Taskmaster master, and I'm going to be buying probably that shirt off Teespring, as you should as well.
Absolutely.
Perfect opportunity to show you the shirt quick. Make sure you guys buy that.
Yeah.
I didn't think this was a bad Kevin Sullivan segment, and I got to give him some credit where it's due. I thought this, like, you utilize him in a good way, and I was okay with it. Yeah,
this was the best one we've seen so far. During our shot of nostalgia time, he's been pretty unbearable. And this wasn't bad. It was more of like a bargaining plate. You know, it's like, listen, you got to get your shit together or else we're going to get it together for you. And it's kind of where it led up to. It was fun, man. I didn't hate it, which is that's like huge for Taskmaster.
Yeah, I mean, on a scale of 1 to Kevin Sullivan, I mean, it was not even close to what I usually think about Kevin Sullivan. So
yeah.
We move on to the next here, and this was not much of a match. Sister Sherry versus Medusa. So this is kind of a payoff of that whole wedding segment that we saw. I'm not going to go through the spots here. Yeah. I mean, whatever.
Watch it if you want at your own disclosure. You
guys want to go and check it out. Sherry gets the win here with a small package. The match went 1 minute and 48 seconds. Mercifully. And to me, why are they making Sherry out to be a heel? I thought she was managing Harlem Heat at this moment. And she's playing like two different characters. She's the manager of Harlem Heat, and she's also this heel character. I mean, it's weird that they bring Medusa in such a big spot, and she's doing things like this.
Yeah, this is the if you will, this is the pith break of the evening, and it's not a long one. You only got 1 minute and 20 seconds to go.
So just so you guys know, for history's sake, and we're to bookmark it, Sherry would be fired from WCW pretty soon following this because of her addiction to painkillers, but she'll be returned in the summertime to manage Harlem Heat again. So you'll see more of her. I think she disappears after 2 weeks from now, if I did my research correct. But yeah. You know, Sherry had her bout with demons as well. But my main takeaway was that Medusa was brought in as this free agent of sort, WWF women's champion, and throws it in the trash and all that. They're making her look like a geek here. It just shows like the growth we've seen in women's wrestling from Not then until now.
No, yeah. This is the shadier side of the booking going on here in 1996.
So we go to the main event here. We have the WCW World Heavyweight Champion Randy Savage versus the Giant, and it was no match. So they did the WCW bait and switch. Savage came through the crowd and attacked Giant from behind with the championship belt, and just like that, the ref just threw out the match. This type of stuff used to really piss me off as a kid. Watch it, because Raw was guilty of it as well at times.
Oh yeah,
man, you're advertising this all night as a big deal, and then you pull the carpet out. I mean, you get people coming back for more eventually because, it works, I guess, but it leaves a little sour taste in my mouth. And luckily we had another Nitro to watch, or this would have left me a little bit upset going into this episode.
Oh yeah, no, this was definitely part of the beginning of the saltiness of being a wrestling fan. These shit falls finish, whatever you want to call it. It was just bad taste. And like, I guess it would leave you to come back next week to get a redemption piece out of it, but at what cost? You ruin the lure of having a beautiful main event.
Yeah, part of what AEW is doing now is changing the way people feel about wrestling, because we were so conditioned to expect DQ finishes, going back on stipulations, not respecting rules of matches, just changing it at will. AEW seems to be following the trend of being authentic and staying within line, and go back to Cody Rhodes' whole thing, not being able to challenge for the world championship.
Yeah.
There's a different approach, and you're almost reprogramming wrestling fans. Like, listen, you're going to get what you ask for. We're not going to give you any BS DQ finishes. That was not the case here.
A lot of DQs.
But you know what, though? At the end, the segment was pretty cool. And it's just maybe now in retrospect, looking at all of the stars and the Hall of Famers, living legends that are all there. I mean, even at the announce desk, they're just going through it. The ref throws out the match, as I mentioned. Flair runs out along with his big buddy, proceeds to destroy Savage. This goes on for several minutes until a bandaged up Hogan runs down with a chair to clear the ring. The worst chair shots I think I've ever seen in my life. We actually went back and watched it again because I had to see it.
It was ugly.
He takes out One Man Gang and Hugh Morris as well, while Hogan tends to Savage. Flair and Giant head to the announce table. I think that's the screenshot on Peacock with them standing behind there. Flair wearing his red gold gym shirt. He's going crazy behind the desk. Hilarious stuff. Bischoff and Mongo just get up and leave. They're like, I want nothing to do with this. And then Heenan takes control and put Flair and Giant over for just taking out Hogan and Savage. Flair and Heenan have such a good dynamic together too. Like they've always had this. I mean, going back to WWF, they were leaning into it a bit here. They announced at Super Bowl the pair of cage matches. Flair and Giant are going to finish them off both once and for all. And the show ended. That's it.
Dun. Overall fun.
Yeah, I agree. It was a good episode of Nitro, and I thought they salvaged the main event, but don't advertise. Like false advertising in wrestling, it's a tale as old as time.
Yeah.
But people paid to see this live and in person. I'm not sure if they advertised at the time. I can't confirm or deny that if they advertised when you bought tickets. But, I mean, you didn't get a main event. And essentially your main event of the show was Sister Sherry and Medusa. Not a good look.
No, not a good look at all.
So it's not honestly, it's not a bad thing because in retrospect, you have all these legends that are just there together.
Yeah.
But at the time, compare this to Raw or Dynamite, you have the champion, say you have Hangman Page taking on whoever, and it's a no match. People would be pissed today.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness, we wouldn't hear about it, or we would not hear about it for at least a month on social media and everything. Like people they love the bitch when they got a reason to. Don't give them a reason to.
Yeah, if social media existed at the time of Nitro, I mean, it would have been very, very, toxic. Not just Nitro, but Raw fans too.
Absolutely.
It creates this polarizing fandom of tribalism in wrestling as such a problem that at this time you liked what you liked because no one was there. You couldn't live tweet it. It was either you're watching with your friends, you wait till the next day at school or at work, and that's when you got to discuss the things that you liked. And in a lot of ways, you developed your own opinions. It's not just regurgitating what you heard online and developing your personality, really. It boils down to that, to someone's opinion online. That's part of the issue of the world we live in today, not to go on a full
100%
tangent about that. So anyway, let's move to the February 5th, 1996 episode of Nitro. And this was a very, very good show. I thought it was the better of the two, and we'll get into why. And this took place Lakeland, Florida, as I mentioned, the Jenkins Arena. And the current champs, as I mentioned, we have still world champion Randy Savage. Somehow the WCW US champion is now Conan, who won the title in between the Nitro and this Nitro.
Maybe a house show. We don't know.
It's not even listed on the title history. So if you guys can find it for me, it doesn't exist. I feel like they just gave him the title.
Yeah, which probably happened. I mean,
why not?
I'm not upset about it.
And obviously, you guys know the tag champions are still Sting and Lex Luger, and the WCW World Television Champion is Johnny B. Bad. So we have Eric Bischoff, Bobby Heenan, and Mongo McMichael again at ringside, providing, again, the soundtrack to your childhood. We open up with the opening match. When I take the lead here, WCW World Heavyweight Champion Randy Savage with Elizabeth and woman at his side versus Chris Benoit. I mean, this was a freaking dream match.
I mean, retrospectively, and I maybe not so much at the time, because you're like this young guy, Chris Benoit, getting put into the title picture. What's going on here? Like, I used to lose my shit when I would see stuff like that. I was like, why is this greenhorn coming in and trying to fight for the WCW championship, man? But they did a great job, and it was awesome. Come on, Chris Benoit, one of the best wrestlers of our generation, regardless of what the outcome was. You put him in the ring with the Macho Man Randy Savage. Yeah, I loved it, and even with it being a DQ finish, it was still very entertaining, very fun.
Yeah, this match was a DQ, as you mentioned. It went 8 minutes and 18 seconds. One thing I want to note was the nasty bump he took by the guardrail. Like, nailed his head directly on the concrete. Definitely made me sick to my stomach to watch that happen. And then he proceeded to hit a diving headbutt right after that. So, and just multiply those headshots for the next how many years, and then you get the result of what eventually went down in his condition of his brain. I mean,
Yeah.
shots like that, they're not good for this little flesh helmet we got on our head here. Not great.
Yeah, he was lucky to have the long career he did, even though it got cut short. Like his brain must have been a ball mush by the time he was doing stuff.
Yeah, Macho's elbow was a thing of beauty in this match. It's always very good, but this match itself was exemplified the Macho Man elbow. If you're looking for one of the best elbow drops that is not WrestleMania 4 or 5, go and check this elbow out. This is really great.
It was beautiful.
It's picturesque of what you want it to look like. Great.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more, man.
Yeah, great match. So we have Gene Okerlund get some comments of a hysterical and distraught Hulkster. Liz is right in front of Hogan, while Flair comes from behind and lays Hogan out with a cheap forearm right in his bad eye. So Flair getting the upper hand again. You know Hogan's going to get his revenge. You know it's coming, but it's nice to see Flair on top here for a little bit.
Yeah.
But this may be strategic on Hogan's part because he's recognizing, again, as I mentioned from the last week's Nitro, he is, I mean, people are giving him some grief for how he's being booked. I think they're trying to undo some of the powerful stuff by like, look, guys, I can sell. Look, I can lose.
Yeah,
brother.
That's true. Brother, yeah, but I'll put you over, brother.
So this was weird too. So Flair was holding Hogan for a chair shot across his back from the Giant, and he wants another one, but Zodiac pushes him back. And the whole time Zodiac is thinking about, I don't know. He's just looking at things like he's just off in the distance. I feel like he didn't know what he was doing. Go back and watch this segment, guys. He did not know what he was supposed to be doing, and
he got lost. Absolutely,
he lost in the chaos, and maybe he didn't know the camera was on him, but he just he was just standing there, and it just did not fit well. And then also Savage wants to know why Liz didn't tell Hogan that Flair was behind him, and then Gene goes to her defense, but nobody was buying, in my opinion. So more to come on that because we do get some intel on that, and don't want to move too far ahead, but
no, absolutely.
they are laying the seeds for what would eventually happen. So next we have Arn Anderson and Brian Pillman versus Kevin Sullivan and Hugh Morris with Jimmy Hart. This match was pretty good, 7 minutes and 15 seconds, but not the ending you want. So you want to go into the spots that you liked from this match?
Yeah, I can't say enough about Pillman. Like, I really, this is something that I'm kind of reliving, and it's like reliving it again for the first time. He was so damn talented. And what a good place to put him is with the Four Horsemen. Him and Arn's chemistry is so good here. And I like that it's Papa Arn. I'm going to beat the shit out of you. Get your head straight, kid. Like, it was just a fun match, even with Hugh Morris and Taskmaster. Like, it was, I was a big Hugh Morris fan, like in the later run of his career. I thought it was fun, but like, I mean, for what it was, this was a good match. Yeah.
Someone needs to tell the Booker man no belts allowed. He took it out again. There's another DQ. I can't imagine though, if you're looking at this list of like, this is what's going to happen tonight in the Booker's meeting. You do back-to-back DQs like this.
Messy.
And after the main event ended the week before on a DQ, it's like, how many? Can you be more creative than this? Like, is it that necessary to have both teams looking strong? Can't someone lose here? Why does Kevin Sullivan and Hugh Morris have to win or lose?
Yeah.
Like, why do they have to come out looking strong? Just have Arn Anderson and Pillman come up looking strong. Like, I don't get it.
That's the thing too. The DQ finish doesn't put anybody over. It prolongs it in a bad way. It's like trying to fix a flat tire with a balloon. Like, it's just not doing it.
It was honestly, it was a good match up until that point. 7 minutes and 15 seconds of just great action. You said Pillman was the highlight. I agree. I mean, he was all over the place. The things he was able to do, the character work, he knows where the camera is.
Looks like $1 million.
Absolute superstar. He is the guy that you're looking at in this match. And you can look at him. He looks like a future world champion. If things didn't go sideways for him, like, you can build a wrestling company around him. And
100%.
The more WCW I watched from 1996, I feel like Brian Pillman is the guy. If you're taking like a fantasy draft of like people in certain eras, I may take 1996 Brian Pillman in the first round. Like, he is everything and more you could want in a guy. Promo, in-ring work, presence, authenticity. He is everything and more. And I mean, lightning in a bottle.
Yeah. what a seller. Like, how can you work Taskmaster and Humors and sell for them the way he was doing? Like, he was the total package. If you were calling pro wrestling a character or by a character at the time, I would have to choose Brian Pillman. I think he's got everything you would look for not only a future world champion, but like a business guy. Like, he is the seller of the whole thing. He's the best guy in this match.
He's the best guy in the company. I mean, everything I watch from him, he is 2 weeks ago, he was all over the show. And rightfully so. It didn't feel like it was too much. It felt like he was in the right place at the right time. And
absolutely.
I don't know, the more I watch of this Brian Pillman in this era, he's so underappreciated. He might be more underappreciated than anybody else in wrestling history because of how it ended and because of just, it was too short. And I think
no belts allowed, man.
if you do this over the course of, say, 1996 until 2005, he may go down as one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, no, he absolutely.
For smart wrestling fans, we all know how great he was. But if you go to a wrestling show right now and ask somebody who Brian Pillman was, they'll probably say it was Brian Pillman Jr.'s dad. And to me, like, that's a shame. Like, you need to be showing, and AEW's done a good job of that. When they went to Cincinnati, they showcased Brian Pillman Jr. wearing the Bengal tights, and they do a good job of bringing some light to it. But it's hard to do without the video library. 100%. If AEW had access to it, they probably would do it in a great way. But we got that one DVD from Vince. We got the Dark Side of the Ring episode, but he does
none
not
of it
get
does justice.
He doesn't get his justice at all.
Yeah,
and
listen,
I just miss him more and more.
Yeah, I was a huge Brian Pillman fan growing up, and like but reliving this, I wish it would have went on, forever. It was like you're looking at a very young, crazy, great gimmick here, and he's doing the best work of his time. Wild, absolutely wild, man.
Well ahead of his time, blending reality with storyline. It's certainly something that became commonplace throughout wrestling.
Yeah,
and he became the standard. And like, we want to talk about guaranteed contracts. So in and out of the ring, he was setting new norms, and that has to be appreciated. He does not get his just due, and I can't say that enough. And I will say that every time he's on my TV, because you need to go out and check him out. Anytime he's on your TV, you need to stop what you're doing and look at the screen. And people need to learn from him. In the business day, there's not enough Brian Pillmanisms happening throughout the wrestling, because
damn right.
you can learn a lot from watching him.
Yeah, 100%, man.
All right, so you mentioned Ric Flair versus a very young Marcus Bagwell. I'll let you take the lead here. We have Nancy Benoit, a.k.a. Woman, in the corner of Ric Flair. Woman is officially in the Four Horsemen. She's doing the hand sign, dropping the 4 in there. Tell me about this match. I mean, Buff Bagwell, we know his whole career trajectory. We know where it went. He kind of looked like a young star here. It felt like he was like, all right, they may be giving him a rub for the future.
Yeah, I mean, first off, it's our first non-DQ finish of the night. So this is great. It goes to show you can put anybody in the ring with Ric Flair and make him look amazing. Potential on Marcus Alexander Bagwell before he was too tough and the man with all the stuff. It was interesting, and like I almost tweeted it to him because I was taking screen grabs while we were watching it. I was like, "Wow, look at this!" It was a good showcase of an up and comer versus that living legend type. I thought Bagwell looked great. Not as good as Ric Flair, Daddy, but I thought it looked good, and it was a fun, just back and forth match. There was some good chops. As always, we got Flair in the ring, and yeah, man, Buff Bagwell. I think he looks better here than he did at the later end of his career.
Yeah, he's not as big, steroid.
That's true too. Yeah, he was
Steiner-esque. Like with the beginning of Steiner's career, he was able to do things he can't do now or even early 2000s. So. But
100%, man. This
match ends in DQ, like you had said. It's not a DQ finish. It ends in a submission. Woo. So we get the figure 4. Flair won't release the hold and pops in the ref's face for so much as suggesting that he should be release the hold after the match is over. It's not until Randy Savage comes out and chases Flair away that the hold gets broken, And that's when Bischoff said, there's your 12-time world heavyweight champion. So
Yeah.
the beginning a little bit of taking down Flair a notch or two, even on commentary and booking, in my opinion, coming off a win off of Hogan and then going wire to wire at Buff Bagwell, or at the time, Marcus Bagwell.
Yeah.
It's a weird optic. I mean, he went way too long with Bagwell. Great match. I'm just saying, if you're thinking about it, if you're watching this in a vacuum, like, no problem. Flair gets the win, but Bagwell took him to the limit. Maybe if they had in mind, they want to make Bagwell look strong, that's okay. But I don't know, made Flair look like the win look a little bit more like a fluke from Hogan. And I'm not sure if that's intentional or not.
No, for sure. I mean, you could say the same thing with, minus the DQ finish, but Benoit and Savage, like you had Savage in this big picture with the Giant coming off from the week before. And then he comes up. I mean, Benoit wasn't that established here yet. Like, he was great, but like he was an up and coming fan favorite, and as we see, you put up Macho Man, who's the guy right now. He's the world champion. So, I mean, this was a weird, just an occurrence that happened on the show. I mean, we got some young guys fighting some older talent. And, I mean, that's how you put people over, and that's how you build star power, I guess. But it's just a weird choice of things, especially with Buff Bagwell.
Absolutely. And we have the main event here, which was a barn burner, in my opinion. I think this is why it sets the Nitro apart from the week prior. And we got the match. It delivered. WCW World Tag Team Champions Sting and Lex Luger versus the Road Warriors. As we see Sting throughout his history, he's all about wrestling the Road Warriors since they came back. He wants to be around them. You can tell he likes working with them. These guys all have a history of working together throughout the late 80s. And you could tell that they like being together in the ring, and it shows. Yeah, because they have a really good. We talked about the power, the Faces of Fear versus the Road Warriors. Sting and Lex Luger are such different styles. Even though Luger's this big, jacked up guy, he definitely wrestles a smaller level style. Yeah, and this was the perfect mesh of wrestling here, and it makes the road. This is when the Road Warriors look their best, because they're able to do all their big moves and look strong while guys can sell for them. And who was better than Sting at this time selling? So.
No, absolutely.
Awesome match.
And the great thing is, too, is you got to see a showcase of a real tag match as a main event for the show. I thought it was a good way to put tag team wrestling on the map a little bit more. I mean, obviously the Road Warriors are fantastic. Obviously Lex Luger, Sting. You're dealing with 4 amazing talents in that ring at once. And they all did a great job. It wasn't like a shit show, which I was very impressed with how it looked on just watching it back. It was really good, man. Sting and the Road Warriors have that chemistry that you were just talking about. This is good shit, pal.
So there was an issue in the middle of the match where the power went off before commercial break. I'm not sure if you caught that. They did a pretty good job editing it.
Yeah.
But on commentary, Bischoff sells it as saying blames it on WWF. I'm not sure he's being serious or not, but it was a nice way to play it off. The ending of the match, we have 7 minutes and 58 seconds. Animal gets whacked in the back with a metal object as Luger covers him for 1, 2, 3. Weird to see Road Warriors losing here, especially so fresh off of their return.
Yeah.
But still a great match to me. This is peak Lex Luger and Sting, and as I guess is their team, and against the Road Warriors, they look the best that they've looked so far. Yeah. And I've seen them. Even in WWF, they didn't look as good as they looked here.
No, this was really organized. They look like menacing big guys, and I totally agree with you. I don't think that we got too many great WWF matches with the Road Warriors. So I think this is them in their prime, and the Road Warrior pop is one of the best things that we'll still witness to this day. They're over, man.
That's a good pop. That's
a good pop.
Yeah, the Road Warrior pop forever lives, and it still continued even when they made their return later years, even when Animal was the only one left and would come back and the music would hit. There's something about when the music hits, and even though it was different from WCW and WWF, it was different music, but people knew what was coming, and they knew they were going to get hard hitting, smash mouth wrestling. Like I said before, doesn't exist in the same way anymore. We get these strong style wrestlers, but it's not the same as the Road Warriors. And I'm not saying I'm calling for it right now because everything has a time and a place.
Yeah.
But there was nothing like the Road Warriors before or even after. They just kind of existed on their own island and set a style. They are one of a kind. And I don't think they get as appreciated as they are because the work rate's not there. They're never going to put on a 5-star classic, but the matches they put on, like that style of wrestling has a really big following. And I think people should talk about it more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why we talk about the Road Warriors to this day, still with such love, I know the younger fans don't understand it, and they probably never will. I mean, the best you could say is the CM Punk pop is closest thing to this day in wrestling, especially when they're in Chicago. But you like that, there is no more Road Warrior pop, and there was a reason why they were a great tag team. They had presence, they had the look, the moves, they just looked badass. They wrestled like badass, strong men. Like it was over back then. Crazy.
Yeah, if you want to talk about toyetic, we talk about it all the time about wrestlers looking like $1 million and made for action figures. These guys look like superheroes, and their attire was so. Even if you didn't watch wrestling, something about it spoke to you as a kid. And the Road Warriors, I mean, damn.
I own the spikes. I had the spikes when I was a kid, man. We used to paint our faces all the time. You're wrestling on your couch when you're kids. I'll be Hawk, you be Animal. Let's do it. What a ride.
See, like my introduction to the Road Warriors as a fan was in 1998 when they made their return at WrestleMania 14. So that's my first introduction. I've gone back and watched older Road Warriors, but there's nothing like a first impression. Yeah. And despite them winning that battle royal and going on a little bit of a run there, they just didn't fit that era of wrestling in the way that they probably would have liked it. But at the same time, I think they kind of transcend time period, and what they did in 98 wasn't as good. But if you go back and watch a little bit of Rose-Colored Glasses, it's the spirit is still there. And the pop was still there. When they came back, the Boston went unglued at WrestleMania 14. And that was just, they'd been out of the business, out of WWF, I should say, for a pretty long time at that point. I mean, when they leave, 1992, they were there. Hawk had his issues at Wembley Stadium. Yeah. And then they probably left around 93-ish.
93, 94 or latest,
Because they weren't on the WrestleMania 10 card. So moving toward, they spent their time in WCW, and we find them here. People don't forget, and they leave an impression every time they're in the ring. And they definitely leave an impression on the people that they're wrestling, because they're making sure you think that wrestling is legitimate. Some of those moves are stiff, like a Hawk clothesline, man.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Even the just everything they did. I can't even, there's nothing I can say about them that didn't look stiff, man.
My favorite spot of this match, and it's so silly, but so good at the same time. You get a pile driver on Hawk, and he stands up right away and no-sells it because you don't give Hawk a pile driver. So he drills Lex with a clothesline and a jumping shoulder block. It's so silly that a pile, like, no-selling the pile driver, but I just pop for it. I'm like, yes. Yeah. It was amazing because you don't give Hawk a pile driver. It's not happening.
Not a lot of people pop for no-selling either. Yeah, that would be a great one.
You don't give Hawk a pile driver.
I love it, man.
That ends Nitro for the 5th of February, and damn, what a show, man!
Awesome. And night and day from the week before. It really was. It was solid 2 weeks. I mean, there was some good shit on both shows, but this second episode was way more pedal to the metal. We got some good stuff, and we also got to see some rising stars like the Buff Bagwells and the Chris Benoits. Good overall. It was a buffet. It was an absolute buffet of shit. I loved it.
100%. And that brings us to our chaser, which is where we would pick our favorite part of the 2 nights of Nitro. And we might have, sold it for you guys now, but you never know what we're going to say. My God, is that Bone Bigelow? So for the chaser, I want to bring my good friend, your good friend, our good friend, the Australian icon, Nick Storm, into the room.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, producer Nick. I'm back. My second episode in a row here on Shot of Nostalgia. And wait, you're just gonna have to
Storm
give me,
review.
whoa. I'm getting a call. Oh, okay, wait 1 sec. Sorry about this. Hello. Yes, who's this? The 42nd president of the United States, Bill Clinton. How nice of you to call me in this relative time of 1996. This is amazing. How you get back to producing? Okay. Thank you. Okay, bye. That's my good friend right there, man. We're on speed dial. But what's up, guys? How's the show been? I haven't been paying attention like a normal producer.
You're too busy being serenaded by Bill Clinton and the saxophone.
Of course. I have been paying attention. I do have some producer notes. If you guys will let me,
we will humor it for sure. Yeah, get in there.
Okay, so I have some producer notes here. I'll just lift them off as I go. Bischoff should F off. What does? Because you said Ace, if you live in a vacuum, what does that mean? How do people live in a vacuum?
Nothing affects what's going on around you. Like it just exists on its own. You're not taking in the environment around you in a vacuum. That's what it means.
A bubble, if you will.
In a bubble.
Well, that's either one big vacuum or one small person. So either way,
a little bit of both.
It could go both ways, can it?
A little bit of both. I'll keep going on. Benoit diving headbutt is a no-no, and Buff Bagwell wasn't always buff. That's some producer notes for you.
Those are the most amazing notes, and I may just have you do the run of the show now because I was missing those the whole show. I need your notes.
I got them from hearing you guys talk about it, so that's not really much producer notes. It's more just laziness, I think.
But even though he wasn't buff, he was still the stuff.
Yeah, and the girls just couldn't get enough.
Yeah, that's true.
So, Nick Storm, what was your favorite week of the 2 nights of Nitro that we listed? It could even be something that we talked about in the dirt sheets. So that's fair game as well.
I think okay, so I guess what blew my mind was Eric Bischoff wanted a match with Vince McMahon. Really?
Well, see, that's not even from 1996. That's what you pulled away.
That didn't happen yet. We were getting there.
That didn't happen yet?
He challenged him on pay-per-view.
Yeah, he came down on a motorcycle.
I'm
like
I'm a normal producer. You know, producers don't pay attention to the shows they produce. You know,
it's fair enough.
Fair enough. All right,
we'll see it later.
Bellcaster, what was your favorite part of the 2 nights of Nitro? I'll let you lead the way.
I mean, how can we sit here and beat around the bush? Besides seeing a young Chris Benoit fighting Macho Man, which is just ridiculously
headbutts or no diving headbutts.
It's got sex appeal, man. But my obvious choice is Luger, Sting versus what a rush! The Road Warriors,
me
man.
too. Yeah, 100%. Me too.
So good. I agree with you there. Honorable mention for myself. A little shout out to Honor Society, which you guys can watch 7 p.m. Eastern on YouTube. Turnbuckle Tavern. Make sure you guys find it. Twitch and Facebook as well. Honorable mention would be Brian Pillman. Anytime he's on the screen, he's just stealing the show. Facial expressions on point, and he got a good match out of Hugh Morris and the Taskmaster and Booker Man, whatever you want to call him, Kevin freaking Sullivan. So that is a Herculean effort on his part.
No easy task at all.
So like we both talked about, February 5th, that was the much better episode of Nitro, and I feel like they're going to hit a stride now. They're going to hit a stride. We have Super Brawl next week. Going to be awesome.
We're going up and up and up.
Unfortunately, the bar is starting to turn their lights on. We have to close the tab. You know, you don't got to go home, but you can't stay here, guys. Let's close the tab. So that's it for the show, guys. Next week's show will be May 13th, 2022, and we will be talking about the pay-per-view Super Brawl 6, which was from February 11th, 1996 from the Bayfront Center. And, of course, the follow-up Nitro the next Monday night from February 12th, 1996, which took place in the same state of Florida, Tampa, Florida. WCW loved running Florida. They love Florida. They own that market, goddammit.
Hell yeah.
But, man, we get to watch our first pay-per-view.
Yes.
Ooh, that's gonna be the 6-hour special of Show Nostalgia.
I mean, not really. Like if we did, listen, I mean, we're at an hour 40 now. We probably this is about where we were last week. If we had a Clash of Champions result segment over here, we probably would be
Don't make
at
me
2 hours,
ramble
10
for
minutes.
20 minutes, and then I think we're fine.
I mean, how
True.
can we not talk about WrestlePalooza either? I mean, what the fucking that's some of the most mind blowing shit.
Yeah,
that
okay,
I think I've
that's
ever
the
heard.
most mind-blowing shit that I've heard this session,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, let's call
would
it
be
what
that.
it is, though. The World Wrestling Festival, of Peace, which was trying to
WWFP for you guys that like to abbreviate.
trying to get people together, and what could have been. You know, I want to hear your thoughts on that. If you think it would have changed wrestling trajectory, do you think WWF and WCW could have got along, put their differences aside, and not try to put each other out of business? Because there is a place for multiple wrestling companies. AEW filling that void for WCW. They're not quite at the level where WCW got to, but we learned for a long while that monopolizing wrestling with one promotion is not beneficial to the product. We all suffer as fans. Vince McMahon makes a shitload of money. We all suffer and have to dig and claw for finding independent wrestling and things that are just not easily accessible. So the thing I appreciate about this and about now is the ability of choice and being able to find things that we do like. Wrestling, as always, is a buffet. You choose what you like, and we have more options than ever.
Absolutely.
So, the more things change, man, the more they stay the same. WCW, it is like night and day as far as what was happening. You know, back then, we really can see a huge difference from where the wrestling world only became years after they had left.
Yeah.
So only
Wild.
5 years later, dude, they go out of business from 96 to 01. That's
That
it.
makes no sense. That's crazy.
From where they were to where they became.
I mean, it
Where
makes
they
makes
go?
sense in the later years. You understand in the final couple years why they went bankrupt.
you
But
almost had to try to do what they did. And you know what? They succeeded. They destroyed a
they definitely
cash
tried.
cow. They had a
Listen,
money
bro.
they had a money printing machine and they let it go away.
Yeah, they hired the wrong Vince, damn it.
But just like WCW went away, we have to go away. But the thing is, we will return next week. This isn't the final Nitro that we will be reviewing. We have plenty more Nitros. We are moving into the month of February. Make sure you guys check out Super Brawl 6. Watch it. Join us on Friday. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Turnbuckle Tavern. There's plenty of content. Leave a review if you liked what you saw. Check out other shows as well. The fucking GCW show, Fig Night. We had Mattel Steve Ozer, which, you know, Nick Storm and OG Fig Kid and Mike Belcaster all had a great conversation about wrestling figures. We got those frauds on the road, and I won't even name them by name. The AEW wrap-up, the Honor Society, which you guys watched last night, and what a great episode that was. So much great content. We got Before Our Time eventually popping on here to reviewing the WrestleManias with Young Anthony and Nick Storm. Join the Turnbuckle Tavern. It's never too late. Get involved. Get your voice out there. Join the Discord. We're a bunch of nice guys making great wrestling content. We're fans, and I'm having the time of my life doing this.
Oh my! You know what I just
Likewise.
realized? Look at my name. I'm Sneed Storm Review. Guys, this is a callback to the Honor Society. If you checked out that episode, you know the reference. You're a cool guy, but I'm a fucking.
It's an Easter egg. It's okay.
It's
You were
an
too
Easter
busy
egg.
on the phone with Bill Clinton to.
Exactly. Dude,
I don't even know
was
how to work
making
this machine that we're on.
I was making plans
Guys,
with
we have to
Trillium.
say goodbye. So, Mike Belcaster, for Nick Storm, I'm the Ace, and the Ace is the place for your insightful wrestling takes. Until next week, guys, we're out.